All right, welcome to Frontline, 6 o'clock here on the East Coast, and we begin with something that probably most Americans can still agree on, honoring a hero. President Trump awarding Major James Case Jr. the Medal of Honor at the White House nearly 60 years after his historic actions in Vietnam. A reminder that America's greatest warriors are not forgotten. Plus, looks like the European Parliament has finally had enough after years of soaring migration numbers and national leaders insisting everything was under control, but there are actually rape gangs going on. Lawmakers are sending a message loud and clear. I don't understand what took them so long. This is after lawmakers passed a bill aimed at increasing deportations of those illegal migrants. Whatever. And Americans are finally getting some relief at the pump as the national average for gas drops below $4 a gallon for the first time since early March, down almost 60 cents from its high nationwide. President Trump, though, saying that Americans should expect to see gas and oil get a lot cheaper thanks to the administration's new deal with Iran. But first, the Obama Library is officially open. Oh, you didn't notice because it's not a big deal. And nothing says legacy like, 5 years, over time frame, over budget, cracking concrete, unpaid invoices lingering in the background. I don't know. Let's do this. This Obama's legacy. This is it. This Star Wars looking bucket of concrete, the Obama Presidential Center, held its grand opening today, just, a casual 5 years late. I always say this. Democrats, they build nothing, so they don't know how to build it. This whole thing is like the perfect encapsulation of the Democrat Party. Late, mismanaged, and virtue signaling. Perfect example. On the opening day, like the opening thing, Valerie Jarrett pulls the most lib card of all. The acknowledgement that they're on stolen land.
We'd also like to take a moment to recognize the original inhabitants of the land upon which we are gathered today. We honor the Anishinaabe, the Council of Three Fires, the Ojibwe, the Odawa, and the Potawatomi nations.
Okay. Speaking of stolen land, yeah, they might have been stolen and given to the national parks, but Obama then went ahead and stole that land from the Historic Park Service. Here's an idea. You could give it back and go home. Nobody would notice, but you won't because you don't actually mean any of that stuff. Just like how you guys bulldozed historic trees to build this thing in the first place. The first parts of the delays started here. You see, Obama, or the Obama Center, I should say, just snatched up a part of Jackson Park, which is historic land listed on the National Registry of Historic Places. And not a single person anywhere for any project ever could ever get approved to build on anything like that, except for their golden calf, Barack Obama. This thing is like the California Rail Project. No deadlines, no budget, just people slapping concrete together. The kings of environmentalism, too. Just going around bulldozing 1,000 or so historic trees that were part of what they called a sensitive habitat for birds, migratory birds. Great job on that one. They blocked historic sightlines to the water, they screwed up traffic, and a bunch of other stuff which triggered a bunch of federal reviews for, well, here's some. Section 106 of the National Historic Preservation Act, National Environmental Policy Act, too. Environmental assessment by the National Park Service and others. Section 4 of the Department of Transportation Act, which protects historic sites and parks from transportation impacts and things like that. There were some other permits for the Army Corps of Engineers and the Clean Water Act and the Rivers and Harbors Act and the Urban Park and Recreation Recovery Act, but rules for thee, not for me. They got approved anyway somehow. But by 2015, they'd already announced severe delays, and it would not make the original 2021 deadline. But once they got all the lawsuits out of the way and destroyed all the migratory bird nesting areas, they had to go hire contractors. And this may actually be the best case study in DEI. The focus was to hire local minority-owned and women-owned businesses via initiatives like We Can Build It consortium from the Workforce Diversity Coalition. Or check this out, though. The website's down. No longer available. Their homepage is, but you Nothing works. So the bidding starts. Some of the businesses bidding, though, they just rushed in and started minority-owned. A lot of them didn't even have track records, okay? Some were inadequate experience and even front companies in some cases, which led to construction failures, a bunch of rework and mismanagement issues, reports of repeated design changes because nobody knew what they were doing, unnecessary rework, scheduling disruptions, extensive oversight problems, and all kinds of finger pointing and a bunch of infighting amongst the subs, which led to lawsuits. A 2025 federal lawsuit by a minority-owned concrete subcontractor is one of them. He sued the structural engineer firm Thornton Tomasetti for $40 million because it's alleging non-standard requirements, to give more leeway to hire less qualified minority contractors. There were performance issues by the engineer and attempts to blame delays and overruns on other minority firms in their inexperience while claiming that non-minority firms might have actually performed this better. Meritocracy, I know. Tough term. So naturally, this project continues to balloon the budget. It was originally $300 million, then it became $500 million, and ultimately ended up with a whopping total of $850 million, for which many contractors still haven't been paid. And at least 7 to 10, including several small minority-owned businesses that they searched high and far for, report being owed millions of dollars in unpaid invoices. And they have change orders out there and tons of other extra costs. One plumbing firm actually is claiming $4 million owed, others 7 figures. Some of the businesses that are owed so much that their biz could actually go under if they don't get these invoices paid because they devoted all their time to this project, which actually totally checks out because Democrats don't care about anybody but themselves and their vanity project, despite their claims for the little guy. Right, Bernie? In your 3 houses? Some of the contractors, though, actually are under NDAs, so they can't speak out about it. Others are considering liens or lawsuits, but can't get blood from a rock. Basically, I don't know. What would you expect from a totally woke project? I mean, it's built, so, what are they going to do? Unbuild it? But Obama did take the opportunity to tell us that we're just not a great country while he was there. Then, this is the best, Gavin Newsom just starts gushing over how worthy Obama is and blah, blah, blah. Just watch.
I walked up, a couple of people said, when they walked upstairs, they said they were crying the whole time. And I looked at them, I said, I'm good. Got up there, literally started tearing up. And I think everybody feels that spirit and that pride that we've been missing. And we didn't even realize how much we've been missing it. And we've been missing it because of the divisiveness. We've been missing it because we have people that, frankly, are unworthy of their positions. And there we saw on stage people that were worthy of what our founding fathers lived and died for.
Didn't you just pay a compliance penalty today? Oh, yeah, we'll get to that in a little while. But the insincerity oozing from his pores at no point. People were not crying. Please, lecture me more about deserving. When you see the salaries of this place, too, even before it was finished, this started to shape up as like an employment farm for Obama admin loyalists. Let's just go through their I-9s, which is their tax filings, because they're a nonprofit, right? So Valerie Jarrett, the woman who acknowledged stolen land, that's Obama's longest senior advisor. Normally, people who are senior advisors, they do it for 2 or 3 years, and then they move on and go get a bigger job in the private sector. She's too stupid to get a job in the private sector, so she stayed there for the full 8 years. Now she's the center's CEO. $756,000 salary and benefits. Robin Cohn came from the Pritzker, J.B. Pritzker's Realty Group. Surprise there. Now the EVP reels in a healthy $651,000 in total comp. Former chief of staff for Michelle Obama, Christina Chen, now another EVP, stacking those up pretty high. Strategy and impact, whatever that means. $397,992,000 base salary plus $25,000 in other expenses. Michael Stratamanen, whatever his name is. That was Valerie Jarrett's chief of staff. Why a senior advisor needs another chief of staff is beyond me, but that's how the Democrats run the government. But that landed him another EVP of External Affairs, raking in $351,815,000 base salary, plus another $40,000 and change in external expenses. Lori Healy, an SVP. Oh, they got done with the EVPs. Now we're on to SVPs. The Executive Project Officer. What is that? Before she actually passed away, but before her death last year, she was making almost 400 grand a year. All right, Laura Lucas Magnuson, former comms director for the National Security Council. Okay, now another EVP of global programs. Why does the Obama Center need a global Anyway, $359,929 salary, a couple benefits like a parking space in there too. When they first started hiring people in 2018, they hadn't even broken ground, okay? Their salaries were costing the foundation $18 million a year. That ballooned to $44 million a year in 2024. It's got 337 employees. Most of them are directors and EVPs and SVPs. There's very little people that actually do anything over there. Like I have no idea what these things are for, but at least the project is privately funded. Or so they say. Yes, they do raise a bunch of money. I think Bezos gave them like $100 million for what? I don't know. But they do raise the money for like salaries and stuff like that and operations. But aside from costing the neighborhoods their skyline and tens of thousands of birds their homes, obviously, it has actually cost the city of Chicago $123 million in infrastructure improvements. That is likely to hit probably $200 million, they're saying, before long. That doesn't include the additional $229 million in state funds, too, for infrastructure, which may also not be the total price tag there either. The bottom line is this is the perfect example of Democrat management and why they can't manage this project. They definitely can't manage the country. This is how they run everything. The country, their states, cities, towns, whatever. And now it's proven in a private project that it does not work. This is the case study to vote Republican. Meanwhile, I'd like to remind you that Donald Trump, who these people hate all the time, say he's bad at everything, he's not. Trump finishes his projects on time and often under budget. For instance, his famed Trump Tower on Fifth Avenue took half the time to build. Half the time. And 1/3 the cost. He also spent a year and a half demoing the old building that was there, which the Obama said didn't have to do. He only spent 2.5 years to build the new one, and unlike the 11 years it took to build the Obama Center. The only cost overruns were for redesigns that Trump changed during the construction. Well, let's talk more about this. President of African American Contractors Association, Omar Shareef, who has several subcontractors who, they own private companies that have approached him with unpaid invoices. Sir, I appreciate you taking the time. Having been in infrastructure construction myself, I understand the use of subcontractors, and not paying a bill can be devastating to one of these businesses.
Well, thank you for having me, Carl. I really appreciate this because a lot of our contractors are hurting from this ordeal that took place on the Obama Center. They was happy to be involved. Everybody was ecstatic. Some of my members was involved. They came to me 4 months ago and told me that they was having some difficulty. So I sat in the conference room. I asked them what difficulty was it. They clearly explained that they were dealing with cost overruns that they was forced to do, and they did not get financial covering for it. And so they asked me to speak about it. And so I asked them, do they mind me using their name? They told me that they had a non-disclosure agreement and they was afraid that they would get sued and they would lose everything. But here today, they still going to lose everything because they're not getting their money. Their loans are due. Some of them put up their home. Some have lines of credit. Some have supply lines of credit, as well as some of the majority guys that would like to use them in the city of Chicago and the state of Illinois. They do not want to use them now because of the problem that they're having on this Obama Center. And we are just simply telling Barack Obama, the foundation, the general contractor, and their Lakeside Alliance partners to pay these contractors so that they can go on with their lives.
Yeah, well, they also have, I believe, they have over a $400 million endowment just sitting there to ensure that
they're not even using it.
Yeah, exactly.
They're not using it. And today, what's so interesting, they had all the celebrity, all the glitz and glamour, and they could have raised the money there and paid these guys and let them go about their business.
Yeah. What do they say to you when you approach these people? Like, dude, you guys got to pay your bills.
Well, they claim that the contractor's been paid. So that means that somebody took the money or stashing the money and they're not paying the subcontractors, which the project supposed to be geared around helping the economic development in our community. I've been doing this thing since 1989, and I never seen nothing like this happen in my entire life.
Wow. I mean, that says something. I mean, obviously, it's not Barack Obama you're dealing with, but there's somebody at the top of this food chain that's giving you guys the finger. Is there any mechanism that you've seen that might be able to work, put liens on this place or anything?
Well, some have, there'll probably be some liens dashed out, but they was trying to give I think, the center and the president respect enough to open up and to see what happened. But they're afraid that now that the center is open up, they're not going to get their money, probably a penny on the dollar or whatever, and they're not going to get their rightful cost of that project. But my thing is that pay them so that they can go on and save their company and chalk this one up as a loss.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Omar, I appreciate you joining us. No matter what side of the political aisle you're on, you got to pay your contractors, sir. Appreciate it.
Thank you, and love you for it. Thank you.
All right. All right. Breaking news on a story we brought to you yesterday. The Assistant Attorney General Harmeet Dillon announcing on X that the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission will be investigating Major League Baseball and whether the league religiously discriminated against Christian players who wrote Bible verses on their hats. Put that in your pipe and smoke it, you woke fools. Coming up, AI was supposed to make our lives easier, so why are companies sending trillions, workers losing jobs, and some of the smartest people in America suddenly looking nervous? I'm going to give you my thoughts on that later in the show. It's actually a money pit. But first, the feds raising details about the ringleader of the alleged UFC terror plot at the White House over the weekend. We'll tell you who he is and what investigators just found out about him next.
A Social Security update. Millions collect Social Security, but 70% of Americans don't get their full benefits. Now, a new report shows how to boost your Social Security by as much as $188,000. Author Matthew Allen reveals 5 key strategies in a new report. Newsmax calls it the best guide for retirees. Everyone needs this free Social Security report. Act today to get your full benefits.
Like a relentless weed, moderate to severe Crohn's disease or ulcerative colitis symptoms can keep coming back.
Break away to what's possible with Tremfya.
The only IL-23 blocker for Crohn's and UC to offer self-administration from the start.
Tremfya can help with symptom relief as early as 4 weeks, remission at 12 weeks, 1 year, and 2 years.
Some had visible repair of their intestinal lining. Serious allergic reactions, increased risk of infections or lower ability to fight them, and liver problems may occur. Before treatment, get checked for infections and TB. Tell your doctor if you have an infection, flu-like symptoms, or need a vaccine. Break away with Tremfya.
Backed by over 15 years of clinical research. Ask your doctor about Tremfya today.
Spring. Things out here have gotten a little too comfortable. It's time to run it. Run it until the grass becomes a lawn. Until the hedges duck for cover. Then run it again. Right now, save $30 on select trimmers. Steel.
I mean, who could have possibly seen this coming? The feds naming an illegal immigrant from Mexico as the alleged ringleader of the plot to attack Sunday's UFC event at the White House. Now, according to DHS, Abraham Alvarez entered the U.S. on a B-2 visitor visa and then failed to leave before it expired in 2001. He was granted then DACA status. I can't make this up. By Obama administration in 2014, and he's been living here as a DACA recipient ever since. Gee, thanks. 25 years in the country overstaying visas, and then you were given another chance, and we're supposed to believe the system's working? Golly. Political legal analyst Mehek Cooke and former federal prosecutor Doug Burns. Mehek, it's like the headlines write themselves.
They really do. And did we forget 9/11 when we had a couple of those conspirators actually overstay the visa? We already know this is a policy failure. And the biggest thing about this, Carl, is DACA is temporary. Obama made it up to allow illegals to overstay their visa. And then the United States has allowed them workers' authorization. But the biggest part is we never vetted these individuals. So it doesn't surprise me that there's a Mexican national who overstayed and was illegal. And then he had a blanket exemption. DACA is not citizenship. And this is, Carl, where the president can't ask DHS to vet every single DACA status immediately.
Right.
This is a national security crisis.
But Doug, this is the problem. They always said, oh, these DACAs are just poor kids trying to go to school. And so it turns out they're trying to bomb the White House.
Well, those are narratives, obviously, and we've lived with narratives for 10 years. They create a narrative, they censor and block and don't report on things that go against those narratives. I agree with everything Mehek said about the failure of immigration policy, but then I turn to the other half of this equation, which is the whole radicalization landscape. It's one thing for journalists, and I'm using the air quotes on purpose, on the left, to call Trump Hitler for 10 years. But it's quite another, guys, when you have major politicians, high-ranking political figures calling him Hitler, and that leads to this type of stuff. There's no question about it.
Yeah. Mehek, the other thing is, we didn't get to this today, but we're anticipating the Supreme Court to rule on birthright citizenship. It was maybe today, maybe happening early next week. This could be big, but listening to the arguments, I actually have no idea which way this could go.
And Carl, I'm with you on that. I think the Supreme Court showed a lot of skepticism, and they are tied to this anchor baby idea. But I really hope that they look at the strict construction of the Constitution and the way it was intended, not how liberals have allowed for our citizenship just to be handed out like candy to every single individual that is then turned around and, again, posed a national security threat. I'm optimistic for the Supreme Court. They should get this right, given it's the 250th celebration. And I know what it is like to be American because I earned citizenship the legal way, not being an anchor baby through application.
If you come here, and it clearly says subject to the jurisdiction thereof. So if you come here illegally, drop your litter, you shouldn't be able to stay here based on that. Doug, the Supreme Court did rule, and I actually really, really like this ruling, unanimous, that the government cannot restrict gun rights for casual drug use. They said there's no historical evidence of this in any laws, any founding documents. So if you want to smoke weed and own guns, have at it.
No, I think it's a good ruling. It was interesting that everybody was on board, totally unanimous, and it's a win for the Second Amendment. I couldn't believe it. Just a minute ago, I was looking at an article from the left, broken record point by me, but saying that, going against the Trump administration with this ruling, that's not true at all. Another totally false narrative.
Yeah. Mehek, real quick, I got a minute left. After announcing he was under investigation and complaining about it, Gavin Newsom has now agreed to pay a fine, and it's an ethics fine of $31,500 after California's political watchdogs found the governor failed to timely disclose millions, and we're talking big millions, of donations that he solicited.
Carl, say it louder. California watchdogs, not the Trump DOJ.
Yeah.
This is his own doing.
Exactly.
So that is the national story today. His own state actually outed him. This is a guy, Newsom, who wants to talk about weaponization, who wants to pretend like the government's out to get him. No, that was President Trump, buddy. You're going to write your own tale, and everybody's watching that you are an ethical nightmare in addition to all the fraud in California. So I think this is just the tip of what we're going to find out in terms of him, his wife, his chief of staff, and so on.
Yeah. Oh, can't wait to get into his staffers. All right, Mehek, Doug, we appreciate it very much.
Thank you.
My pleasure, Carl.
Coming up, peak journalisming from the legacy media. Instead of investigating fraud and waste and abuse, our taxpayer dollars, or anything like that, CNN's actually just looking into algae. Culture, next.
Remember Joe Biden? He was totally lost, had no idea where he was. And the big media, they knew it, but they covered for him. We deserve the truth, all of us.
Watch Greg Kelly Reports, only on Newsmax.
My name's John Cogley, and I've been a Relief Factor customer for 2.5 years. Relief Factor has increased my mobility. Obviously, it's cut the pain down. Because the pain's down, it increases my flexibility and strength. I have younger friends that I do music with, and they're amazed at my energy level and things that I can do at my age.
Rediscover a life with less pain. Right now, in honor of America's 250th, try our 3-week quick start for a special price, just $17.76.
Think you need a new roof? Think again. Most roofing companies only make money one way, by selling you a new roof. But what if your roof isn't worn out, just dried out? And with just a little love, you could put off an expensive roof replacement for up to 15 years, at a fraction of the cost of a new roof. Newsmax is a scientifically engineered restoration formula that brings your shingle life back to new. Scan the code and get a free roof tune-up with your Newsmax restoration.
You might take something for your heart or your joints. So why wouldn't you take something for the most important part of you, your brain? Prevagen for your brain.
Hi, I'm Karan. I've been taking Prevagen for 4 years now. I noticed a significant change. I feel confident.
Prevagen for your brain. Every day presents a new opportunity for you to take care of your brain. Supplement your good brain habits with Prevagen. Prevagen for your brain.
Doctors recommend turmeric more than any other supplement for joint health. I trust Cunol Ultra High Absorption Turmeric, made with the #1 doctor recommended form of turmeric, clinically tested to support joint health and a healthy inflammation response. Cunol, the brand I trust.
Thanks to Jointivia, I'm back in the swing of things. Wait, $70 for a refill?
You gotta try Single Care. Just look up your prescription, show the coupon at the pharmacy, and save.
See why more people are saving with Single Care.
Sir, he's here to see you.
So, are you ready to join forces? PCMax provides complete protection for your computer and smartphone against malware and ransomware, and it's 100% American-made and supported security.
Today, Cyberman and his unknown partner delivered a massive victory, protecting homes, businesses, and federal devices from ransomware.
Get protected now at PCmatic.com.
If you know luxury, it's not just award-winning, it's rewarding. Saatva Mattresses supports all types of sleepers. Luxury is handcrafted and assembled in American factories and brought directly to you with our complimentary in-home delivery and setup service. Which is why over 90% of customers would recommend Saatva to friends and family. Saatva, luxury mattresses made affordable.
Honey, Mortgage Bunny 6 says we should keep renting.
Mortgage Bunny 6?
Reba says more realtor agents recommend Realtor.com. They track every market so you know when to make your move.
He also says that Bigfoot... Got it.
Make it real with Realtor.com.
This is the Legacy Media, providing breaking coverage for the algae in the reflecting pool in D.C. CNN has done more investigation into this than literally anything else, including Biden's health. Medicaid fraud, forget about it. Voter fraud, SNAP fraud, nope. Sampling the water in the reflecting pool in the National Mall and then paying for water tests on it. That's what America needs to know.
CNN independently took the sample of water and consulted with a pool store that regularly tests water to help read the results.
If there's already some phosphate fertilizer in the water, that's really opportunistic, especially for the blue-green algae that can fix nitrogen. So they are having a field day out here, probably.
Peak journalisming for Legacy Media right here. And then you have crazy liberals that are throwing a pro-algae protest of 3 people, by the way, at the Lincoln reflecting pool. Get jobs. Host of Ungoverned on LFA TV, Shawn Farash, and Newsmax contributor Kay Smythe. Shawn, I'm surprised you weren't out there pro-algae.
You know, I was thinking about going out there and being anti-algae, you know, or making like a bit, you know, Carl, be like, you know, here we are announcing we're deporting the algae from the reflecting pool. We're bringing in ICE. ICE is doing a fantastic job. You know, you look at the algae, we've signed a memorandum of understanding with the algae, and they have no military, they have no Navy, they have no Air Force. The algae is dead. They're gone. No, this is ridiculous. This is what you're spending your time on? Pro-algae? And CNN, by the way, Okay? No, nothing about the rape gangs in the UK.
No.
Nothing about the Leering centers, SNAP fraud, hospice fraud, Medicare fraud, all the other types of fraud. No. Let me just, I'm going to dip my cup in the water and look at the algae. Let's go take it to a pool store and get the experts. What are you doing? You're not a serious network.
Yeah,
they are not a serious network.
We got to follow the science on this one, Shawn. Okay. If you think that's bad, this morning at 10 a.m. on Newsmax Thursday, this is what the same network is covering. Roll this.
From the Japanese government to address the string of bear attacks there. These are emergency response drills, and you can see they include a human with a bear suit crawling around, acting like he's getting shot.
They went on to say at the end of that conclusion of that segment, we love role-playing here, too.
I just can't. It just makes my teeth itchy. It's so, like, okay, who is the key decision maker here? Because that's what we really need to know. Because that person is not only fundamentally, like they're, I would be devastated if I was one of CNN's 3 viewers at this point. I mean, wouldn't you be? Like, you can't watch this and think that this network takes you seriously as a human being. This person doing that's not
so
how bears behave. Carl, you know this. You've literally fought off bears before. That's not even like my brain is melting. Don't be surprised if you start seeing it falling out of my nose.
I'm gonna say though that this is gonna come as a shock to some people in Japan. Apparently, when you shoot a bear, it dies. I saved them a ton of money and role playing. Shawn, you know I'm not a huge sports ball fan. But the reaction from this World Cup tourist in America thing is a goldmine. The latest and greatest thing that tourists coming to America, we have it so good here that they have discovered one of our greatest, most richest assets, ranch dressing. Now, TSA is having an issue. They're issuing warnings about traveling back home with ranch to their countries. And TSA writing, okay, please avoid chugging your ranch outside securities. The airlines will check it for you. They're trying to smuggle ranch dressing home.
I can't take this seriously. First of all, I don't like soccer. So if it was up to me, I would cancel the whole World Cup because you have a bunch of third world savages that are coming here. True. And like a few of them were busted as terrorists. It was like, we don't need
the Somali referee was a terrorist.
Yes, I mean, that was a thing. I was like, cancel the World Cup. I don't like this sport. There was like a 0-0 tie the other day, and people were like, what a remarkable game. I was like, how remarkable is it when there's no remarks on the scoreboard? Yeah. But these Europeans and these folks who are coming to the country, right, who are like, wow, America's so cool, ranch dressing and a gun store. Like, all right, that's cool. But we don't need a soccer tournament in our country to bring them here. Just let them come. Instead of letting these people come from these, third world, what countries in the Latin Central America and all these places around the world, but the Europeans would come over, right? You could avoid all your nonsense that's going on in Germany and France and the UK. Come on over, have the ranch. Yeah. Okay?
Have the ranch.
We don't need to do it for soccer. That's it.
Have the ranch. All right, wait till they find out about brisket. All right, they banned red meat, I think, over there. All right, down in Georgia, Kay, the race for the U.S. Senate between Trump-endorsed Mike Collins and Democrat John Ossoff. This is underway. So Ossoff thought he'd do something slick by releasing this political ad. Roll it.
His rich daddy, a former congressman and career politician himself, handed Mike the keys to a company with dozens of employees, making multimillionaire Mike richer, while real truckers did the actual work. Maybe that's why Trump likes him so much.
Mike Collins, Mike Collins, Mike Collins.
And it might be why in Congress, he's looked out for the richest 1% and big corporations instead of ordinary hardworking Georgians.
Okay, so the only problem with this is Ossoff was actually bought a company with his grandfather's inheritance, and then his daddy bought him his home in D.C. He also invested $250,000 of that money into a British film company that he claims to be the CEO of. I mean, pot, kettle.
Pot, kettle black, and there's also not a single human being who watched that ad and doesn't have the phrase Mike Collins, Mike Collins, Mike Collins just ringing around their head all day, every day, straight to the ballot box. I'm telling you. So clearly the guy doesn't run a movie studio. And if it does, it's probably one of the ones that, I don't know, probably had something to do with like Doctor Who and the way that's gone down the toilet, because they clearly also made that ad that looked like it was going to be a hit piece. But all I heard was guy whose dad built the American dream for his family has successfully maintained that American dream for his family. And also employs a bunch of people who happen to be truckers. Mike Collins, Mike Collins, Mike Collins, you know, let's go.
All right.
Terrible, terrible hit ad. I really hope that Mike Collins uses it for his
he should just
political campaign.
Just repay it and be like, yes, I'm Mike Collins and I endorse this fool's message. Shawn K., we appreciate it. All right, coming up, President Trump signing the initial deal to end the conflict in Iran, but of course the political establishment is having problems with it. We're going to set the record straight on this next.
A closer look at America's favorite redhead, Lucille Ball. Her quirky personality captivated audiences and helped chart a new course for women in Hollywood. Watch Lucy, Queen of Comedy, this weekend on Newsmax TV.
Steak is for dads, grill dads, tongue-snapping dads, united by their love of steak. His perfect gift is waiting, plus 8 free burgers. Get it in time for Father's Day at omahasteaks.com.
I've got to share this because it's been a real game changer for me. I've been dragging, feeling out of shape, just old. My buddy finally convinced me to try Nugenix Total T2, and man, it actually works. I feel years younger.
Introducing Nugenix Total T2, combining a drug-free next-gen T booster with a powerful nitric oxide booster that sends blood and oxygen to muscles in just 3 hours.
After 40, and I'm in the best shape of my life. See what it can do for you.
You can only get your complimentary bottle of T2 by texting T to 215-215.
The first time I experienced vertigo, the room was spinning, like I was in a clothes dryer. Then I started taking LipoBalance support. Its ingredients are clinically shown to help reduce dizziness and spinning. Take back control with lipoflavonoid.
Forget the warm-up. DirecTV got hot. They're on fire with more MLB games than anyone.
Welcome to the big leagues, kid.
How old are you?
11.
Thousands on their feet. The Stars and Stripes kick off the day's World Cup action as Pulisic leads the U.S. against Australia. Can you believe it? Friday at 3 p.m. Eastern on Fox.
What if you're sick at home or traveling and can't get medical help or prescriptions? Doctors say a medical emergency kit is the answer. Joining me is Dr. Drew.
Thank you. And yes, these kits put you in charge of your health. They come with physician-prescribed medication to treat multiple common and some serious issues as well.
What are some examples?
Sure. Generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, other essential antibiotics and antivirals that treat flu, pneumonia, strep, ear infections, sinus infections, urinary tract infections, and more.
So it is like urgent care and a pharmacy at home?
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications.
How do you know what medicines to take?
You just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Sound advice. Order online in minutes at the website below and save $45. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Look what I just found. No ding decline on the Experian app. They show me credit cards that won't hurt my credit if I'm not approved. Turns out I care about my credit health too. Get the app from your big financial friend. Experian.
Hey, I'm Dr. Drew Pinsky. I've been looking at the aging process for a long time. Fatty 15 actually slows it down. Fatty 15 comes out of Navy dolphin research. Without the C15, our cells become fragile and age and oxidize. This pushes that back. That's why I take Fatty 15.
Stop trusting foreign antivirus to defeat foreign-made ransomware. American-made PCmatic protects your family, your home, and your workplace. Go to PCmatic.com. Built by Americans to protect America.
Some of these cabinet members in Israel who are attacking the President of the United States, the other thing that I would say is that over the last 3 months, 2/3 of the defensive weapons that have protected your homeland have been built by American hands and paid for by American tax dollars. The problem for Israel is not Donald J. Trump. And anybody in Israel who thinks their biggest problem is the President of the United States needs to wake up and smell the reality of the situation that country is in. Thank you all.
Okay, Vice President J.D. Vance with the epic mic drop at the White House press briefing today, setting the record straight on Trump's Iran deal. President Trump also coming in hot today, putting out on Truth Social, "These fools who think I haven't been tough enough on Iran when a stock market just hit a record high and oil prices are tumbling down are either jealous, bad people, or stupid." Trump also made it clear, "We're not paying Iran $300 billion, he said. "There is no $300 billion payment to Iran by the U.S. That is fake news. All there is for the U.S. is success, lower oil prices, and victory. Check out the stock market. Democrat propaganda at play." But the Democrats still trying to make it into like a thing. Amy Klobuchar, the senator, "With $300 billion, we could end homelessness, fund cancer research, 40 blah, 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 blah." What about the $300 billion you gave to our Ukraine? Why didn't you do it with that money? You people are insane. Those were our tax dollars. Those were actually our tax. Zero return in Ukraine, by the way. Ukraine's still at war. We're done in Iran. And breaking now, just now, the Iranian parliament speaker says that the new Ayatollah wants Iran to pursue the fulfillment of the terms and clauses of the agreement. Weird. Rick Santorum, senior political analyst and former senator from Pennsylvania. All right, sir, what ground do they have? I mean, I think things are pretty good on this.
Well, I mean, really what this is a pause. To say this is over, it's not over. They have no negotiated deal as to how things are going to go forward on a variety of different things, everything from the Straits of Hormuz to the nuclear program to the missile program. So what they did, and I think, look, I think J.D. Vance and many of the administration, really impressed on the president how important it was to have this pause, to open up the straits, get oil prices down, have a reset, get a better understanding of who's running what in the government of Iran. And so you're going to have this maybe 60 days. My guess is it'll be less than that because I can't imagine the Iranians keeping their end of the bargain that long. But if it is, the president's right. Stock market went up, oil prices went down. And so you're going to get this respite. We'll see what happens from there.
But what a lot of these haters don't understand is we exposed significant economic weaknesses with China. We redefined global oil trade. We broke up OPEC. We have just an unmeasurable amount of new military experience and battle-tested items. Okay, maybe we didn't get 100%, but we got 99% we wanted, and all those things I just listed.
No, Carl, 100% agree with you that even depending on what, look, there's a lot to be decided yet, but there's no doubt a tremendous amount of benefit has come to the United States and to the West by what has happened. You're right, all the military experience, but the destruction of the nuclear program, destruction of their military, the elimination of many hardliners within the government, and the relationships now that we have with many of the Gulf states, all good. I can't say that it's over because it's not. And this still could turn badly if for some reason the Straits of Hormuz get closed and they have tolling. And I mean, so there's some bad things that could happen. But again, up until this point, I agree with you that this has been by far a dramatic improvement of the national security of our country.
Rick, real quick, I got a minute left. Department of War Secretary Hegseth just basically told NATO, like, hey, you guys weren't there for us. You could pound sand in the future. What do you think about this?
Look, I think it's unfortunate that NATO acted the way they did during Iran. I mean, you can say, well, the United States didn't support Ukraine. The United States supported Ukraine a lot.
Yeah, we did.
And number one, and number two, not allowing you to fly your planes over your country, not participating in any of the blockade. That was just petulant. I mean, these are children who are being petulant, and I'm glad that Pete sort of called them out again. Hopefully, they'll start growing up and start taking responsibility for their own security.
Rick Santorum, my new MAGA guy, man. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Coming up, guys, massive investments into artificial intelligence, but are they worth it? And how does it compare to other infrastructure projects? My thoughts next.
Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consults are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528. Attention! Do you owe money to the IRS? If you owe $10,000 or more, you must hear this message because new Trump-era tax policy changes are providing relief to the American taxpayer. IRS policy changes in 2025 and 2026 have created new ways to resolve debt. Tax Relief Helpers knows exactly how to navigate them and could help you save thousands. Just call 800-357-9528 to protect your assets, home, and retirement.
I owed $87,000 in taxes. Tax Relief Helpers got the amount I owed down to just $3,500. I saved $83,500.
I got behind on my taxes and I owed $48,000. I called, and after they told me about the changes at the IRS, they got my bill fully removed.
We save Americans millions of dollars in tax debt every year, and we can help you. Call right now to take advantage of the latest Trump-era tax deductions to protect your assets, home, and retirement from the IRS. The call and consults are absolutely free. Call 800-357-9528. That's 800-357-9528.
Ever wished you could brew your own beer, but figured it was too complicated, too messy, too much effort? Well, now you can. Meet Pinter, the home beer system everyone's talking about. Fresh beer, brewed and tapped by you. No fuss, no guesswork. Just brew, chill, tap, done. You can craft 12 pints with every brew. Crisp lager, juicy and hoppy IPAs, smooth stouts. Plus, brew beers from top craft breweries you know and love. From the first tap to the last toast, hosting just got an upgrade. Nothing beats sharing your own fresh beer with friends. You don't need a garage brewery. You don't need a chemistry set. You just need a Pinter. Right now, get your Pinter free when you join our flexible beer plan. Choose your beers, brew fresh at home, and tap into the world's best beer experience. Free Pinter. Freshly brewed beer. Zero fuss. Go to pinter.com/spring to claim your offer today.
I have talked at length about the financial burden of AI and this tech boom that we're seeing today. But the return, is it there? Like, I'm not anti-tech. I'm just saying it seems like we're putting the cart before the horse. Some of this stuff seems like we're just trying to solve a problem that doesn't actually exist yet. But also, this is not a physical, tangible investment. I realize that it is an industry that is growing faster and then we're physically able to keep up with it. But to counter, we seem to be forcing ourselves to use AI for things that we're finding out actually create more work. Not to mention eliminating jobs that people can actually do cheaper. The CEO of Google just gave a speech at a graduation ceremony for Stanford, and a lot of the kids just got up and walked out.
President Levin, Provost Martinez, trustees, senior class presidents, thank you for the invitation to address you today. And to the distinguished class of 2026, congratulations.
I feel you, bro. They have less entry-level options because of AI and all the tech stuff, partially from Google, all this stuff today. These kids were told, remember, by Joe Biden, oh, coal miners should learn how to code.
Anybody who could go down 300 to 3,000 feet in the mine, sure and hell can learn how to program as well. Give me a break. Anybody who can throw coal into a furnace can learn how to program, for God's sake.
And so these kids heard that. They thought coding was a secure career, so they went to go get a degree and learn how to code. And then they went in $200,000 in debt to get that degree, only to have that job vanish in the last year that is doing a worse job than a human probably would. We became so overly obsessed with whether or not we could employ AI for everything and anything that we never stopped to think whether or not we should employ AI for all this stuff. Just because it's new doesn't always make things better, folks. Case in point, we're now going back to coal and rehiring the people for those jobs that were lost to AI, using the coal so we can power it. But more importantly, what's the impact of this over the next 3 years? Because that's the lifespan of this infrastructure, like the physical chips and boards and things like that. The software advances faster than the lifespan of these chips. All these companies are literally dumping trillions of dollars into the physical infrastructure of this technology. And in 3 years, they're going to have nothing to show for it. All the investment will have to be redone. AI is not turning the profit they said it would right now, by the way. Sometimes it's even costing companies, actually, they got to bring people in to correct the mistakes from the AI. But let's think back to all the massive infrastructure build out in the history of America. The railroad, physical asset, moved cargo for way cheaper in mass, had immediate financial returns. And what did the railroads last for, like 50 to 100 years with minor maintenance? The electrification grid, another huge build. We almost actually saw this go bust, but we started with DC that couldn't be transmitted very far, so we built power plants like every few blocks. Then Nikola Tesla came in, invented AC, which is ironic because the cars run off of DC electricity. That could be transmitted, the AC, over longer distances, so we rebuilt all the infrastructure around that, and it lasted for decades. Like, some of our stuff's like 70 years old right now. Roads, same thing. Once they're built, you repave them, which I don't know where you guys live, but in New York, they can't even figure out how to do that. But for the most part, they last indefinitely for a very small fraction of the cost to build them just for the maintenance. AI doesn't have anywhere close to that shelf life. It's the equivalent to having to rebuild every road, every track, every electrical transmission line every 3 to 5 years. That's not a sustainable model. What do you do? I feel like the smartest people in the world should have, I don't know, thought this through. It doesn't look like they did. Look, if it was up to me, shut off all the electronics, let me go run my sawmill up at my property and sell lumber to people with cash or gold. But I realize we need this tech to compete globally because that's the next space race. But I feel like some of these companies could feasibly go bankrupt if they don't start pricing these things into their business models. And I don't really care if they go bankrupt one way or the other. But the fact that they do, it would impact millions of people and could destroy our entire economy. Because over half of our economy is essentially 7 companies: NVIDIA, Alphabet, which is Google, Apple, Microsoft, Tesla, Amazon, and Meta, just sending money back and forth to each other. What do they all have in common, though? Oh, right. They all need this exact technology that's going to expire in the next 2 years to exist. I don't know. Let's see what happens. All right, before we go, what comes after Hump Day? Favorite day. Comments for Carl. Next.
The press won't report the real story.
The American people are actually very smart.
Ridiculous statements.
These guys are just plain weird.
Actual scandals.
Even the immunity decision. I mean, that decision was so misreported.
That's my job, and I aim to do it every night.
IRAs and 401ks were designed to account for a 2% rate of inflation. The idea was you could apply a 4% withdrawal rate and it would last. Inflation is at 3.8%. But when you account healthcare, insurance, food, and energy, the real rate is 8%. Gold's role isn't to make you rich. It's to help you survive what's coming. Call Patriot Gold Group at 1-800-778-4156. Patriot Gold Group is Consumer Affairs' top-rated gold and silver dealer nationwide. The only firm nationwide where you, the client, work directly with an owner. Home of the America 250 no fee for life IRA. Call 1-800-778-4156 and see how easy it is to protect your IRA with physical gold and silver. Call now, 1-800-778-4156.
My husband is Miguel Cervantes, who was a firefighter with the Rancho Cucamonga Fire District. That's what he absolutely loved. My husband's cancer is directly related to his service as a firefighter. My immediate thought after he was gone was, how am I going to do this? Tunnel to Towers said that it would be their honor to help me out by covering my mortgage. To say that it's been a weight lifted off my shoulder would be an understatement.
The pain is gone. It's gone. I was wheeled in. I couldn't even move 5 feet without the wheelchair. I was in awful pain.
Are you able to get onto the bed?
I doubt it.
No?
We went through the whole intake interview, did the MRI, x-rays. I was awake through the surgery, came back to recovery. I was there for 10 minutes, and I got up and I walked.
Venati succeeds where others fail.
The Dutton Ranch. We're back in business.
You heard right. Let's go to work. I'm glad you're making friends, honey.
You're every bit as advertised.
You're damn right he is.
Fighting the good fight, buddy.
Doctors say having a medical emergency kit is like having an urgent care and pharmacy at home. Let me bring in Dr. McCullough to explain more.
Most people know when they're getting sick, but waiting to see a doctor is often too late.
So the key is having medicines before you need them.
Yes, and it includes doctor-prescribed medicines to treat common and serious issues like generic Z-Pak, amoxicillin, antibiotics, antivirals for flu, pneumonia, strep, ear and sinus infections, UTIs, and more.
So it is like having an urgent care at home.
Exactly. No waiting, no pharmacy, no copays. You feel better faster and avoid serious complications and hospitalizations.
How do you know what to take?
Just match your symptoms to the doctor-written guide or schedule a quick telehealth call.
Great advice. I understand ordering is fast online, and we've put the website and $45 off code on the screen. Thank you, doctor.
Visit urgentcarekit.com/news, promo code news.
Thursday, comments for Carl. All right, so Gavin Newsom tweeted out the other day that he was 131,000 new jobs, and Florida was negative 31,000. And I said, on my account, I said, this is completely untrue. They just lie. So some brainchild said, well, prove it then, Carl Higbie. Show us that data. Okay. I'm not sure where Gavin Newsom is getting his info, but according to California's, that's his state's, own website, California did in fact have a net change of plus 101,500 jobs added. But did they? So we went further into that data that shows that growth has been driven by non-private sector jobs, meaning costing the taxpayers money. Healthcare, which is in California largely government funded because of their big socialist programs and is currently under investigation for fraud in places like Los Angeles that has seen an explosion in hospice. They account for 1/3 of the entire country's hospice. There's not that many people to die, okay? The rest of the jobs include social assistance, education, and other random government programs and jobs like their bullet train to nowhere. California has a net loss of private sector jobs and an explosion of government jobs. So no, that number's not correct, especially when many of them are subject of actual fraud investigations right now. Also, they have the country's highest unemployment rate at 6.9%. Florida, on the other hand, let's just look at their last 5 years. 2021, 500,000 to 600,000 jobs. The next year, 300,000 to 400,000. These are new jobs added, by the way, by people moving into the state. Private sector jobs. 2023, 150,000 to 200,000 jobs. 2024, 100K to 150K. 2025, 50 as high as 100K. I mean, how many jobs can you make? Democrats just lie about stuff. Okay, let's do one more. I got time for one more. All right. Last weekend I threw this huge rager at my farm. Then Bob was there, actually. Yeah. And Aaron Thatcher said, 1, how do we get an invite? And 2, you should create a a How to America the Mostest guide. 1, you got to work at Newsmax. Sorry about that. But 2, this show, Bob, is the How to America the Mostest.
This show is. And you are the most American. I made a joke about you on American Agenda the other day. We're talking about July 4th. I'm like, I think that's Carl's birthday. July 4th.
My son, his due date was July 4th. Just saying.
Won't be surprised. Also, when it came to the jobs, I remember one time I was working in upstate New York. Chuck Schumer was bragging about making jobs in the state of New York. They were all for the IRS.
Or flipping burgers without actually cooking them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Made jobs to come take your money. That's what they were celebrating.
Thanks, Bob.
Carl, always a pleasure.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is Newsmax. It's real news for real people.